The moment Ethan Clarke's eyes locked on the woman sitting 3 tables away, his entire world stopped moving. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Linda's Stories. If grace carried you here today, like this video. If faith still lights your path, drop a comment saying, I'm with Linda. Now let's begin this journey together. The IHOP on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn smelled like burnt butter and maple syrup, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead with that persistent electrical hum that made everything feel slightly unreal. Outside, February rain hammered against the windows, turning the sidewalks into rivers of dirty water that reflected the neon signs from the bodega across the street. It was 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and Ethan Clarke had chosen this location specifically because nobody from his world would ever think to look for him here. He needed to meet with Marcus Chen, his head of operations, somewhere off the grid, somewhere the Wall Street Journal couldn't photograph them discussing the upcoming merger that would either make or break Clarke Technologies. But now Marcus was talking about quarterly projections and market positioning, and Ethan couldn't hear a single word because across the restaurant, Sarah Montgomery was singing happy birthday to 2 children who looked exactly like him. The recognition hit him like a freight train. 5 years. It had been 5 years since he'd told her that she didn't fit into his world, that his family would never accept a relationship with someone who worked as a receptionist at the community center, that he had obligations and expectations and a future that required a certain type of partner. 5 years since he'd watched her walk away from his penthouse apartment with tears streaming down her face, her voice breaking as she said, I hope your perfect life makes you happy, Ethan. He'd convinced himself he'd done the right thing. His mother had been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer that same week, and the pressure from his father to take over the company had been crushing. Sarah had been beautiful and kind and everything that made him feel human, but she'd also been a distraction he couldn't afford. So he'd cut her loose with the clinical precision he applied to failing business ventures, and he'd thrown himself into building his empire. Now she was here, 30 feet away, and she was singing to 2 children who shared his widow's peak, his straight nose, his exact shade of brown eyes. Ethan, you listening? Marcus waved a hand in front of his face. Yeah, sorry. Ethan forced his attention back to the spreadsheets on Marcus's tablet, but his peripheral vision stayed locked on Sarah's table. She wore scrubs, the kind nurses or medical assistants wore, faded blue with small stains near the pocket that suggested a long shift. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she looked tired in a way that went deeper than physical exhaustion. There were circles under her eyes that he didn't remember, lines around her mouth that spoke of stress and worry and sleepless nights. But she was smiling at those children, her whole face transformed with a love so fierce it made his chest physically ache. The little boy and girl, they couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Twins. The boy had Sarah's full lips and high cheekbones, but everything else about him screamed Ethan's genetics. The girl had Sarah's luminous dark skin and bright smile, but she had his stubborn chin and the way he used to tilt his head when he was thinking. A waitress approached Sarah's table, a middle-aged white woman with kind eyes and orthopedic shoes. Can I get you folks anything else? More coffee? Maybe some real birthday cake instead of those cupcakes? Sarah's smile didn't falter, but Ethan saw the way her hand tightened around her coffee cup. No, thank you. We're good with what we have. The twins were staring at the cupcakes like they were treasures. Store-bought, the cheap kind from the corner bodega, with 2 sweet frosting that came in those plastic containers. 2 cupcakes, 2 small apple juices in the plastic bottles that cost 99 cents each. That was it, the entire birthday celebration. Happy birthday to you, Sarah sang, her voice soft and slightly off-key, but filled with so much emotion that Ethan felt something crack inside his chest. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Maya and Marcus. Happy birthday to you, Marcus. She'd named the boy Marcus, Ethan's middle name. The children clapped their small hands together, and Maya, the little girl, bounced in her seat. Mama, can we blow out the candles now? There aren't any candles, silly, Marcus, the boy, pointed out with the brutal honesty of a 5-year-old. But we can pretend, right, Mama? Sarah's eyes glistened with tears she refused to let fall. That's right, baby. We can pretend. Make a wish, both of you. A really good one. They closed their eyes. These 2 perfect children who existed because of one night 5 years ago when Ethan had let Sarah into his world, into his bed, into his heart, before fear and obligation had made him push her away. They squeezed their eyes shut tight and wished for things he would never know, and then they pretended to blow out invisible candles. I wished for a puppy, Maya announced immediately. You're not supposed to tell, or it won't come true, Marcus said seriously. But Mama already said we can't have a puppy because our apartment doesn't allow them, so the wish won't come true anyway. Sarah reached out and gently touched both their faces, and Ethan watched her carefully break one of the cupcakes into 3 pieces. She gave the bigger pieces to the children and kept the smallest for herself. The gesture was so small, so ordinary, and so devastating that Ethan had to look away. Mr. Clark, Marcus was staring at him with concern now. Are you feeling okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. The lie tasted bitter. What were you saying about the Singapore deal? But he couldn't focus. His mind was racing, calculating, trying to process the impossible reality unfolding 3 tables away. Sarah had been pregnant when he'd ended things. She'd been carrying his children and she'd never told him. Why hadn't she told him? Had she tried? He remembered deleting dozens of calls from her number in those first few weeks. Remembered having his assistant screen her out when she'd tried to reach him at the office. He'd been so determined to make a clean break that he'd cut off every avenue she might have used to contact him. Oh God, she'd tried to tell him, and he'd shut her out completely. The twins were eating their cupcake pieces with the slow deliberation of children who knew this was a special treat, making each bite last. Sarah wasn't eating hers. She was just watching them, her expression a mixture of love and worry, and something that looked like grief for all the things she couldn't give them. Mama, Marcus said suddenly, looking up with frosting on his nose. Why are you crying? I'm not crying, baby. I'm just happy. She wiped quickly at her eyes. I'm so happy you're both here and healthy and mine. That's the best birthday present in the whole world. Can we have real birthday cake next year? Maya asked. Like the kind Tiffany had at her party, with lots of layers and the toys on top. Sarah's smile wavered for just a second. We'll see, sweetie. Maybe if Mama gets that promotion at work. You work too much, Marcus said with the blunt assessment of a child. Miss Rosa says you work 2 jobs and that's why you're always tired. Miss Rosa talks too much, Sarah said lightly, but Ethan saw the tension in her shoulders. But I work because I love you both, and I want to make sure we have everything we need. We need you, Maya said simply. That's what we need most. And Sarah pulled both children close, holding them tight, and Ethan watched as one tear, then another, slid down her face even though she was smiling. Marcus Chen cleared his throat. Look, Ethan, I don't know what's going on with you tonight, but clearly you're not in the headspace for this meeting. Should we reschedule? No, I just need a minute. Ethan stood abruptly. Bathroom. I'll be right back. He walked toward the restrooms at the back of the restaurant, but his path took him directly past Sarah's table. He slowed his steps, drinking in details he'd missed from a distance. The small backpack hanging on Sarah's chair had been repaired with duct tape. Her sneakers were worn through at the heels. The twins' clothes were clean, but clearly hand-me-downs, a size too big so they could grow into them. As he passed, Marcus, the boy, looked up at him with those eyes that were absolutely unmistakably Ethan's own eyes and said, "Excuse me, mister, do you have a daughter or a son? Because today is me and my sister's birthday and we're 5 years old now." Ethan stopped. He couldn't help it. He looked down at this child, his child, who had no idea who he was, and his throat closed up completely. Sarah's head snapped up, and for the first time in 5 years, their eyes met. The recognition in her face was instant and awful. The color drained from her cheeks. Her hand shot out to grip Marcus's shoulder protectively. Her whole body went rigid with shock and something that looked like terror. "Sarah," Ethan managed to say, and his voice came out hoarse and broken. She stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Several other diners looked over. "Marcus, Maya, we need to go. Right now." "But Mama, we haven't finished our juice," Maya protested. "We'll take it with us." Sarah was already gathering their things with shaking hands, shoving the remaining cupcake pieces back into the bodega bag, grabbing coats and the repaired backpack. "Wait," Ethan said. "Please, Sarah, wait. We have nothing to say to each other." Her voice was cold and flat, completely unlike the warm, loving tone she'd been using with the children seconds before. "You made that very clear 5 years ago." "I didn't know." The words burst out of him. "I didn't know about them." Something flashed in her eyes then, something fierce and angry and so full of pain that he actually stepped back. "Didn't know? I called you 37 times, Ethan. I came to your office 4 times. Your assistant told me you'd left instructions that I wasn't to be allowed up. I sent you 3 letters. I tried everything except showing up at your parents' house, and the only reason I didn't do that was because I still had some dignity left." The twins were staring between them, confused and frightened by the tension crackling in the air. Other diners were definitely watching now, and the kind waitress was hovering nearby, clearly ready to intervene if necessary. "I was wrong," Ethan said, and his voice cracked on the words. "I was so wrong, Sarah. Please, can we just talk?" No. She had both children by the hand now, was already moving toward the door. "You gave up any right to talk to me the day you told me I wasn't good enough for your world, and you gave up any right to them before they were even born. They're my children." The words came out louder than he intended, and several people gasped. Sarah stopped at the door. When she turned back to look at him, the expression on her face was one he'd never seen before. Something hard and cold and absolutely done. "No, Ethan, they're my children. You're just the man who provided half their DNA. There's a difference." And then she was gone, pushing through the door into the rain with the twins, leaving Ethan standing in the middle of an IHOP in Brooklyn, surrounded by strangers who had just witnessed him discover he was a father, watched as the mother of his children walked away from him for the second time in his life. But this time, taking pieces of him he hadn't known existed until 7 minutes ago. Marcus Chen appeared at his elbow. What the hell just happened? Ethan couldn't answer. He was staring out the rain-streaked window, watching Sarah hurry down the sidewalk with a child's hand in each of hers, heading toward the subway entrance on the corner. The twins looked back once, their small faces pressed against their mother's legs, and then they disappeared down the stairs into the station. "Those are my kids," Ethan said numbly. "Marcus, those are my kids." "Okay," Marcus said carefully, like he was talking to someone who might shatter at any moment. "Okay, let's sit down. Let's think this through." But Ethan was already moving, already heading for the door. "I have to follow them. I have to find out where they live." "That's probably not a good idea right now, man. She looks pretty pissed." "I don't care." Ethan threw $200 bills on their table, more than enough to cover both checks, and pushed outside into the rain. By the time he reached the subway entrance, they were gone. He stood there in the downpour, his $1,000 suit soaking through, his handmade Italian shoes filling with water, and for the first time in 5 years, Ethan Clark had absolutely no idea what to do next. Behind him, through the IHOP window, he could see the table where Sarah and the twins had been sitting. The kind waitress was clearing it, and she picked up something that had fallen on the floor. A small toy car, plastic and cheap, probably from a McDonald's Happy Meal. She set it on the table, looking around to see if they'd come back for it. They wouldn't. They were gone, swallowed by the subway system, heading back to an apartment somewhere in this massive city. An apartment that apparently didn't allow dogs, where his children lived with a mother who worked 2 jobs and could only afford bodega cupcakes for their birthday. Ethan pulled out his phone with shaking hands. He had resources. He had money. He had investigators who could find anyone, anywhere. He could have Sarah's address by midnight, could know everything about her life, her jobs, where the twins went to school, what kind of formula she'd used when they were babies. Every detail he'd missed, but something stopped him. The look on her face when she'd said, "You gave up any right to them before they were even born." The way she'd pulled those children close, protective and fierce, and absolutely certain that he was a threat, not a blessing. He'd spent 5 years building an empire. He had a net worth of $2.3 billion. He had offices in 12 countries and thousands of employees. He could buy anything, solve any problem, negotiate any deal. But standing in the rain on Flatbush Avenue, watching the subway entrance that had swallowed his children, Ethan realized that for the first time in his life, money and power weren't going to be enough. Sarah Montgomery had looked at him like he was nothing, like he was less than nothing. And the worst part was that she was absolutely right. He'd been nothing to her when she needed him most. He'd been less than nothing when she'd tried to tell him about the twins. And now he had to figure out how to become something, someone. A father, a man worthy of those 2 perfect children who didn't even know his name. The rain kept falling, and Ethan stood there until his driver, panicking because the GPS showed him standing in one place for 20 minutes, pulled up in the Bentley and practically dragged him into the car. "Mr. Clark, are you all right? Should I take you to the hospital?" "No," Ethan said, staring at his reflection in the rain-streaked window. He looked like a man who'd just been struck by lightning. He felt like one too. "Take me home. I need to make some calls. I need to find someone." "Yes, sir. Who are you looking for?" Ethan closed his eyes and saw those 2 small faces, Maya and Marcus, his daughter and son, eating bodega cupcakes like they were treasures because their mother could only afford $30 for their birthday. "My family," he said quietly. "I just found out I have a family and I need to figure out how to be part of it." The driver, who'd worked for Ethan for 3 years and had never heard him sound unsure about anything, wisely said nothing. He just drove toward Manhattan, toward the penthouse apartment that suddenly felt impossibly empty, while Ethan sat in the back seat and tried to figure out how you apologized to someone for abandoning them while they were pregnant with your children. Children you hadn't even known existed. Children who were now 5 years old and singing to invisible birthday candles because their mother couldn't afford real ones. His phone buzzed with 17 urgent messages about the Singapore merger. He ignored all of them. For the first time in his professional life, business didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the memory of Sarah's face, the twins' eyes, and the knowledge that somewhere in Brooklyn, his children were going to bed in an apartment he'd never seen, and he wasn't there to tuck them in or hear about their birthday wishes or tell them goodnight. Somewhere in this city, his family existed without him, and he had no idea how to change that. But he knew with absolute certainty that he would figure it out or die trying. The Bentley crossed the Brooklyn Bridge, and through the rain, Manhattan's lights glittered like promises that suddenly meant nothing at all. Ethan Clark woke up at 4:47 a.m. to the sound of his phone buzzing, but it wasn't the Singapore deal. It was his mother, and her voice had that dangerous, quiet quality that meant she was about to destroy someone's entire existence. "I just received the most interesting call from Bethany Morrison," Eleanor Clark said, and Ethan could picture her sitting in her Park Avenue bedroom, perfectly composed even at this ungodly hour. Apparently her daughter was having dinner at some diner in Brooklyn last night and witnessed quite a scene. "My son, shouting about children in the middle of a restaurant. Would you like to explain?" Ethan sat up, running his hand through his hair. He hadn't slept. He'd spent the entire night staring at his ceiling, trying to reconcile the man he'd become with the man who'd abandoned Sarah, trying to figure out how to find her without violating her privacy any more than he already had. "It's complicated, Mother. Uncomplicate it now. I have children, twins, 5 years old. I just found out last night." The silence on the other end lasted exactly 4 seconds. "Then, I see. And the mother?" "Sarah Montgomery. I dated her briefly before you got sick, before Dad started pushing me to take over the company." The receptionist. Eleanor's voice could have frozen nitrogen. "The girl from the community center? The one you told me was completely inappropriate." "I was wrong." The words came easier the second time. "I was incredibly wrong, and I've spent the last 6 hours trying to figure out how to fix it." "You can't fix this with money, Ethan, though I assume that's your first instinct." He stood up, walked to his floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Dawn was breaking over the city, turning the sky from black to gray, to that particular shade of pink that meant it might actually stop raining. "I know that. She made it very clear last night that she wants nothing to do with me." "Smart woman." His mother's tone softened slightly. "Tell me about the children." So he did. He told her about Maya's bright smile and Marcus's serious expression, about the bodega cupcakes and the $30 birthday party, about Sarah breaking her cupcake into 3 pieces and keeping the smallest for herself. He told her about the duct-taped backpack and the worn-through sneakers and the 2 jobs Sarah worked to support their children, his children, without any help from anyone. When he finished, Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. "She never asked you for money. In 5 years, she tried to tell me she was pregnant. I blocked her completely. I had my assistant screen her calls. I deleted her messages. I made it impossible for her to reach me. I raised you better than that." The disappointment in her voice cut deeper than anger would have. "I know. I was focused on the company, on making you and Dad proud, on proving I could build something that mattered, and I destroyed the one thing that actually did matter in the process. So what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know. I was thinking of hiring an investigator to find out where she lives, but that feels like stalking." "It is stalking." Eleanor's voice was firm. "Listen to me carefully, Ethan. You have wronged this woman in ways that money cannot fix. You abandoned her while she was carrying your children. You made her raise them alone for 5 years. You missed everything. Their first words, first steps, first days of school, every milestone, every moment, every midnight when they were sick and she had no one to help her. You missed all of it because you were too much of a coward to face your responsibilities." Each word was a knife, precisely placed. "I know. So you cannot bully your way into their lives now. You cannot use your money or your power or your lawyers to force your way in. If you want to be part of your children's lives, you need to earn it. And that starts with respecting their mother's boundaries. She told me I have no rights. She's probably right. Legally, you absolutely have rights as their father. But we're not talking about legal rights, are we? We're talking about whether you deserve to be in their lives. And right now, Ethan, you don't. You need to prove that you've changed, that you're not the man who threw her away 5 years ago. Ethan pressed his forehead against the cold glass. Down below, the city was waking up. People were heading to work, to school, to lives that made sense. His life had been knocked completely off its axis in a Brooklyn IHOP, and he had no idea how to right it. How? Start by giving her what she needs without demanding anything in return. Find out what would make her life easier, her children's lives better, and provide it anonymously if you have to. Show her through actions, not words, that you've changed. And for God's sake, Ethan, be patient. This isn't a business deal you can close in a week. After his mother hung up, Ethan stood at the window for another hour, watching the sun rise over the city where his children lived. Then he made a call to the best private investigator in New York, not to stalk Sarah, but to find out the name of the community center where she used to work, the place where they'd met 6 years ago. By 9 a.m., he was standing outside the New Hope Community Center in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. It was a 3-story brick building that had seen better days, with murals painted by local kids covering one wall and a basketball court out back where teenagers were already shooting hoops despite the cold. This was where Sarah had worked when he'd met her, where she'd organized after-school programs for kids whose parents worked multiple jobs, where she'd believed she could make a difference. He walked inside. The lobby smelled like industrial cleaner and coffee, and the walls were covered with flyers about ESL classes, job training programs, free tax preparation services, and food pantry hours. A different receptionist sat at the desk now, a young man with impressive dreadlocks and a Howard University sweatshirt. "Can I help you?" The kid looked him up and down, taking in the Tom Ford suit and Patek Philippe watch, clearly trying to figure out why someone who looked like Ethan was in this neighborhood. "I'm looking for information about someone who used to work here." Sarah Montgomery. The receptionist's expression immediately became guarded. "Who's asking?" "A friend from a while back. I'm trying to get in touch. And this was the last place I knew where to find her. She doesn't work here anymore. Left about 4.5 years ago." The kid crossed his arms. "And I don't give out information about former employees to strangers, no matter how expensive their suit is." Ethan respected that. "Fair enough. Can I ask who the director is? I'd like to make a donation to the center." That got a different reaction. "Yeah? How much we talking?" "Enough to matter." "Who should I speak with?" 20 minutes later, Ethan was sitting in the cramped office of Margaret Williams, a woman in her 60s who'd been running the New Hope Community Center for 30 years. She was exactly the kind of person who could see through bullshit from a mile away, and she was studying Ethan like he was a particularly interesting specimen under a microscope. "Let me be straight with you, Mr. Clark," she said, after he'd introduced himself and explained that he wanted to make a significant donation. "I've been doing this job for 3 decades. I know when someone's trying to buy information, so why don't you tell me what you're really here for?" Ethan decided on honesty. "Sarah Montgomery, we knew each other years ago. I made some terrible mistakes. I'm trying to make things right, but I don't want to invade her privacy or make her life more difficult. I just want to help if I can." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Define knew each other. We dated briefly. I ended it badly, very badly. And last night I found out that she has children. My children. Twins, 5 years old." Understanding and something like fury crossed Margaret's face. "Oh, you're that man. The one who broke her heart right before she found out she was pregnant. She talked about me, not by name, but yeah, she talked about you, cried about you, showed up to work every day for 3 months with her heart in pieces, trying to hold it together, and then she finally told me she was pregnant and couldn't afford to work here anymore because non-profit salaries don't cover childcare for twins." Margaret leaned forward. "That girl loved you, and you destroyed her. I know, and I can't change the past, but I can try to help now. That's why I'm here. She won't take money from you. She has too much pride for that. I know. That's why I'm here talking to you instead of her. What does this center need? What do the kids need? What would make the biggest difference for families like Sarah's?" Margaret studied him for a long moment, then seemed to make a decision. "We need everything. New computers for the learning center, updated playground equipment, funding for a food pantry expansion, more staff so we can keep the center open later for working parents, scholarships for the kids' summer camp program. I could give you a list a mile long. Give me the list, all of it. I'll take care of it." "Just like that?" "Just like that. My foundation can have money transferred by the end of the week, but I need one thing in return." Margaret's expression hardened. I knew there was a catch. Not information about Sarah. I need you to help me understand what it's like to be a single mother in this neighborhood. What are the biggest challenges? What keeps parents up at night? What resources are missing? I need to understand the world Sarah's been living in for the last 5 years. For the first time, Margaret's face softened slightly. You really want to understand? I really do, because I want to be someone my children can be proud of, eventually. And right now I'm not even close to that, so I need to learn. I need to do better. Margaret stood up. Come with me. I'll show you what Sarah sees every day. She took him through the center, introducing him to kids in the after-school program, showing him the outdated computers that barely worked, the playground equipment that was held together with prayer and rust, the food pantry that ran out of supplies by the middle of every month. She introduced him to other single mothers, women working 2 and 3 jobs, women who left their kids here after school because they couldn't afford anywhere else, women who were brilliant and strong and exhausted. In the computer room, he met a boy named Darius who was trying to do his homework on a machine that kept crashing. It's okay, the kid said philosophically. I'm used to it. We have to save our work every 30 seconds or it deletes. In the food pantry, he met a grandmother named Mrs. Johnson who was raising her 3 grandchildren because their mother was in rehab. She was trying to figure out how to make pasta, rice, and canned vegetables last for the next 2 weeks until the pantry restocked. In the community room, he met a young mother named Destiny who worked the night shift at CVE's and slept in the break room during the day while her daughter was at this center. It's better than paying for daycare I can't afford, she said simply. Each conversation was a gut punch. Each story was a reminder of how little he understood about the reality most people lived. He'd spent 5 years making billions while Sarah had been living this reality, raising his children in this world, doing it alone. Do you understand now? Margaret asked as they returned to her office. I'm starting to. How did Sarah manage with twins? Barely. She worked nights as a home health aide after the twins went to bed, slept in 4-hour chunks, took them to a friend who watched them during the day for cheap, while Sarah worked her day job at a medical clinic. She was one of the strongest people I've ever known, and she was drowning, but she never let those babies see her struggle. They always came first. Ethan felt something crack wider in his chest. What happened 4.5 years ago? Why did she stop working here? The friend who was watching the twins, Miss Rosa, had a stroke. Sarah had to find licensed daycare because she couldn't leave them with someone who wasn't medically cleared. Licensed daycare costs a fortune. This place couldn't pay her enough to cover it, so she had to find higher paying work. Last I heard, she was working as a medical assistant at a clinic in Bed-Stuy and still doing home health aid work on the side. Ethan pulled out his phone and started taking notes. What's the biggest thing that would help families like hers? Affordable childcare, healthcare that doesn't bankrupt you when your kid gets an ear infection, jobs that pay living wages, housing they can actually afford. Take your pick. What if I funded a childcare program here, free for families below a certain income level, subsidized for others? Full-time, qualified staff, safe environment. Margaret's eyes widened. That would change everything. Half our families struggle with childcare. Some parents have to leave their kids with whoever's available, safe or not, because they can't afford anything else. Then let's do it. I'll fund it personally. The Clark Foundation will handle the grants and ongoing operations. Have your lawyer draw up a proposal and my team will review it immediately. Why are you doing this? Ethan looked out the window at the basketball court, where kids who looked like they should be in school were playing because they had nowhere else to be. Because Sarah was right. I lived in a world that was completely disconnected from reality. I thought I was building something meaningful, but I was just making money. This, what you do here, this actually matters. These kids matter, and I want my children to grow up in a world where their mother doesn't have to work 2 jobs and survive on 4 hours of sleep just to keep them fed and safe. You can't buy your way into their lives, Mr. Clark. I know, but I can try to make the world they live in a little bit easier. That's a start. Margaret studied him for a long moment, then reached into her desk and pulled out a business card. This is the clinic where Sarah works, Bed-Stuy Family Medical Center. She's there Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. After that, she picks up the twins from Miss Rosa, who recovered from her stroke, and watches them for cheap because she loves those babies like they're her own. Why are you telling me this? Because despite everything, I think you're sincere. I think you actually want to do better. But Mr. Clark, if you hurt that girl again, if you use this information to make her life harder instead of better, I will personally make sure you regret it. Do we understand each other? perfectly. He left the community center with a new understanding of just how badly he'd failed Sarah and a determination to do better. He couldn't change the past, but he could change the future. He just had to figure out how to do it without making Sarah hate him more than she already did. That afternoon, he had his lawyers draw up the childcare center proposal. By evening, it was sent to Margaret with a guarantee of $2, $5 million in seed funding and annual operating costs for the next decade. He didn't use his name on the donation. He used his mother's name instead, the Eleanor Clark Foundation for Family Services. His mother called him 3 hours later, and for the first time in years, he heard pride in her voice, but he didn't sleep that night either. He kept thinking about Sarah's face in the IHOP, about the twins eating bodega cupcakes, about 5 years of birthdays and holidays, and everyday moments he'd missed because he'd been too focused on building an empire to notice he'd already had everything that mattered. He also kept thinking about what Margaret had told him. Sarah worked at the Bed-Stuy Family Medical Center. He could show up there, try to talk to her, try to explain, but every time he imagined doing it, he remembered the look on her face when she'd told him he had no rights to the twins. So instead, he started planning. Not a plan to force his way in, but a plan to earn his way back. It would take time, patience, and a complete transformation of who he was as a person. He'd spent 5 years building a business empire. Now, he had to figure out how to build something infinitely more complex, a relationship with the woman who hated him and the children who didn't know he existed. The rain started again around midnight, and Ethan stood at his window, looking out at the city, wondering if somewhere in Brooklyn, Sarah was awake too, maybe checking on the twins, maybe worrying about bills or work or the million things single mothers worried about. He picked up his phone and opened his notes app, started typing. Things I need to learn: how to be a father, how to respect boundaries, how to earn trust, how to be the man Sarah deserved 5 years ago, how to be someone my children could be proud of. It was a start, a small one, but a start nonetheless. Somewhere in Brooklyn, Maya and Marcus Clark Montgomery, though they only knew their mother's last name, were sleeping in beds Ethan had never seen, in an apartment he'd never visited, having dreams he'd never hear about. And their father, who'd just discovered they existed 24 hours ago, was standing in a penthouse 40 blocks away, trying to figure out how to become worthy of them. The gap between those two realities, between the life he lived and the life they lived, seemed impossibly vast. But Ethan had built a billion-dollar company from nothing. Surely he could bridge this gap too. He just had to figure out how to do it without destroying everything in the process. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Chen. Singapore deal is falling apart. They need an answer by Friday or they're walking. This is $400 million, Ethan. Where are you? Ethan stared at the message for a long moment. 48 hours ago, this would have been his entire focus. Now, it seemed almost irrelevant. What good was $400 million if his children were eating bodega cupcakes for their birthday? He typed back. Handle it. You have full authority to make decisions. I trust you. Marcus's response came immediately. Are you dying? Are you having a breakdown? This isn't like you. I'm not dying. I'm just realizing what actually matters. You've got this. I need to focus on something more important. He turned his phone off after that, ignoring the 17 calls that came in over the next hour. Let them panic. Let the board think he was having a crisis. Maybe he was. But it was the kind of crisis that would either destroy him or transform him. And he was betting everything on transformation, because somewhere in Brooklyn, his children existed, and he would do whatever it took to become worthy of being their father, even if it took the rest of his life. Sarah Montgomery's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., and she woke with the exhausted certainty that the worst night of her life in 5 years had just happened. She'd barely slept, replaying that moment in the IHOP over and over. Ethan's face when he'd seen the twins, the shock, the calculation, the inevitable conclusion that yes, these were his children. She'd known this day would come eventually. In a city of 8 million people, she'd still known that somehow, someday, he'd see them. She just hadn't expected it to be on their birthday, in the one place she'd taken them as a special treat. Maya and Marcus were still asleep in the bedroom they shared, the one bedroom in her tiny one-bedroom apartment in Crown Heights. She slept on the pull-out couch in the living room, had for 5 years. It was fine. They needed their space more than she did. She moved quietly through her morning routine, making coffee in the second-hand coffee maker that only worked if you hit it just right, checking her phone for any messages from the clinic about schedule changes, mentally calculating whether she had enough money for groceries this week or if they'd be eating rice and beans again until next Friday's paycheck. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from an unknown number and 1 voicemail. Her stomach clenched. What if it was Ethan? What if he'd somehow gotten her number? She played the voicemail on low volume. Miss Montgomery, this is Jennifer Kaplan from the Bed-Stuy Family Medical Center. I'm calling to inform you that there's been a scheduling change. We need you to come in at 7 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. today. Please call back to confirm. Thank you. Just work, not Ethan. She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. At 6 a.m., she woke the twins gently, helping them dress in their school clothes, making them instant oatmeal because it was cheap and filling. Maya wanted to talk about her birthday, about the cupcakes, about how Mama had sung to them. Mama, who was that man? Marcus asked suddenly, his spoon pausing halfway to his mouth. The one you talked to at the restaurant. He looked sad. Sarah's hands stilled over the lunch boxes she was packing. Just someone I used to know, baby. It doesn't matter. He had eyes like mine, Marcus observed. The same color. Kids noticed everything. Lots of people have brown eyes, sweetheart. Not that brown, that exact brown, like looking in a mirror. Maya kicked her brother under the table. Stop asking questions and eat your breakfast. Mama looks tired. Sarah wanted to hug both of them and never let go. Instead, she forced a smile. I'm fine. Just didn't sleep well. Too excited about how big you're both getting. 5 years old. Pretty soon you'll be taller than me. That's not for a long time, Marcus said practically. We're only 3 feet tall and you're 5'6". We'd have to grow a lot. Her brilliant, analytical son. So much like his father in the way he processed the world. It terrified her sometimes, seeing Ethan's mannerisms in this child who'd never met him. By 6:45 a.m., she had both kids dressed and fed, their backpacks ready, and was hustling them toward Miss Rosa's apartment 2 floors down. Miss Rosa had recovered from her stroke, enough to watch the twins before and after school, and she did it for $200 a week because she loved them and because Sarah had helped her with groceries and doctor's appointments when she was recovering. Morning, my babies! Miss Rosa opened her door and the twins flew at her for hugs. She was 72, Dominican, and had 12 grandchildren of her own, but she always made Maya and Marcus feel like they were special. Did you have a good birthday yesterday? Mama took us to IHOP, Maya announced, and we had cupcakes and juice and everything. Lucky babies. Go watch cartoons while I talk to your mama. Once the twins were occupied, Miss Rosa pulled Sarah into the hallway. You look terrible, mija. What happened? I saw him last night at the restaurant. Miss Rosa's eyes widened. The father? After all this time? He was just sitting there, Rosa, 3 tables away. He saw the twins. He figured it out. I watched his face when he did the math. Sarah's voice was shaking. And then he came over to the table and Marcus said something to him and I just panicked. We left. I didn't know what else to do. Did he follow you? I don't think so. I was watching. But Rosa, he's rich now. Really rich. I looked him up when I got home last night. Clark Technologies. He's worth billions with a B. He could afford the best lawyers in the country. What if he tries to take them? Miss Rosa gripped her shoulders. Listen to me. No judge in this country is going to take those babies from their mother. You've raised them alone for 5 years. You work yourself to death for them. You're a good mother, Sarah. The best mother. But he has money. He has power. And I have $30 in my checking account and a mountain of medical bills from when Marcus had that ear infection last year. He also abandoned you when you needed him most. That counts for something. Sarah wiped her eyes angrily. I need to get to work. Thank you for watching them. I'll pick them up by 4:30. Take care of yourself, mija. You can't pour from an empty cup. Sarah made it to the clinic by 7:03 a.m., 3 minutes late, which her supervisor noticed but thankfully didn't comment on. The Bed-Stuy Family Medical Center was a busy place, serving a neighborhood that was underserved by healthcare in general. She worked as a medical assistant, taking vitals, prepping exam rooms, handling basic patient intake, and occasionally filling in at reception when they were short-staffed. It was honest work, important work, but it paid $18, $50 an hour, and even working 40 hours a week, that wasn't enough to cover rent, food, utilities, childcare, and the mountain of small expenses that came with raising 2 children in New York City. That's why she worked the home health aide shifts 3 nights a week, making another $16 an hour to care for elderly patients in their homes. She averaged about 30 hours of sleep a week. It wasn't sustainable. She knew it wasn't sustainable. But what choice did she have? Sarah, room 3 needs vitals, called Dr. Patel, one of the physicians she worked with most often. Then room 5 has a follow-up for diabetes check. She moved through her morning on autopilot, taking blood pressures and temperatures, asking the same questions she asked every day, documenting everything carefully, because this clinic had been audited 3 times in the last 2 years, and everyone was paranoid about paperwork. It wasn't until her lunch break at noon that she let herself really think about what seeing Ethan meant. He knew about the twins now. He couldn't unknow it. The question was what he would do with that information. She pulled out her phone and Googled him again, something she hadn't let herself do in years. Ethan Clark, CEO of Clark Technologies, Harvard MBA, Forbes 30 under 30 list back when he was 28. Multiple articles about his company's innovative solutions for enterprise software. Pictures of him at charity galas, always with some beautiful woman on his arm, never the same one twice. In 5 years, he'd become exactly what his family had wanted him to become. Successful, powerful, connected, everything she wasn't and never could be. There was a recent interview from last month where he talked about his business philosophy. You have to be willing to cut loose anything that doesn't serve your goals. Sentimentality is the enemy of success. She felt physically sick reading that. Is that what she'd been? Something that didn't serve his goals? Something to be cut loose? Hey, Sarah, you okay? One of the other medical assistants, Keisha, sat down next to her with her own lunch. You've been staring at your phone for 10 minutes, just processing some stuff. Man trouble? Keisha was direct in a way Sarah usually appreciated. You've got that look. Something like that. More like old man trouble that just became new man trouble. The twins' father, Sarah had never talked much about Ethan, but she'd mentioned once that the father wasn't involved, and Keisha had been smart enough not to push for details. Yeah, he found out about them last night. Oh shit, that's huge. What are you going to do? I have no idea. Hope he just goes back to his billionaire life and forgets we exist? Is he a billionaire? Apparently. I looked him up. Clark Technologies. That Ethan Clark. Keisha's eyes went wide. Hold up. Your baby daddy is Ethan Clark, the tech guy. Girl, that man is worth like $2 billion. I know. And you never told him about the twins? I tried. He blocked me completely. Wouldn't take my calls, wouldn't see me, had his assistant turn me away. I tried for 3 months, and then I gave up because I was pregnant and stressed, and I couldn't keep beating my head against that wall. Keisha was quiet for a moment. So what do you think he'll do now? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe he'll show up with lawyers and try to take them. Maybe he'll offer me money to go away. I just don't know. Would you take money, not to go away, but for the twins, to make their lives better? I don't know. Is that selling out or is that being practical? It's being a mother who's drowning and someone just threw you a life preserver. There's no shame in accepting help, except the help is coming from the man who told me I wasn't good enough for his world 5 years ago. That feels like it comes with strings. They both went quiet. After a moment, Keisha said, whatever happens, you've got people here who've got your back. Don't forget that. Sarah managed to smile. Thanks. The afternoon passed in the usual chaos of patients and paperwork. Around 3 p.m., Dr. Patel called her into his office, which was unusual. He was in his late 40s, Indian American, and one of the kindest doctors she'd ever worked with. He saw patients the other clinics wouldn't take, people with no insurance and complicated medical histories, and he never made anyone feel less than human. Sarah, sit down for a minute. Her stomach dropped. Am I in trouble? No, nothing like that. I just wanted to check on you. You seem distracted today, and that's not like you. I'm fine. Just some personal stuff. The kind of personal stuff that's going to affect your work? No, I promise. I'll be more focused. He studied her for a moment. You work too hard, you know that? 2 jobs, 2 children, barely any sleep. It's not sustainable. It's what I have to do. I know. And that's a failure of the system, not you. But I worry about you. If you ever need help, resources, referrals to social services, anything, please ask. That's what we're here for. Thank you, Dr. Patel. Really. She left work at 4 p.m., picked up the twins from Miss Rosa, and headed home. The kids were bouncing with energy, talking over each other about their day at school, about the art project they'd done, about how Marcus had helped Maya when she couldn't remember her numbers. Their apartment felt too small and too empty at the same time. Sarah made dinner. the usual pasta with butter and frozen vegetables, because she could make it stretch for 3 days. The twins did their homework at the kitchen table while she washed dishes and tried not to think about Ethan Clark standing in a penthouse somewhere, looking out at a view she'd never see. After dinner, after baths, after the bedtime routine that was the same every night, Sarah tucked the twins into their beds and sat between them, stroking Maya's hair and holding Marcus's hand. "Mama, can I ask you something?" Marcus's voice was small in the dark room. "Of course, baby. Why don't we have a daddy like the other kids at school?" Sarah's breath caught. They'd asked before, but never quite like this. "Well, some families have 2 parents, and some have 1. We have each other, and that's what matters. But didn't we used to have a daddy before we were born?" "It's complicated, sweetheart." "Was it the man from the restaurant?" Maya asked quietly. "Is he our daddy?" Sarah closed her eyes. She'd always promised herself she would never lie to them about Ethan. She would tell them the truth, age-appropriate truth, when they were old enough to understand. But 5 years old felt too young for this conversation. "What makes you think that?" she asked carefully. "He looked like us," Marcus said. "And he looked at us like, I don't know, like he knew us but didn't know us, and you were upset." Her brilliant, perceptive children. "Yes," she said quietly, "that man is your biological father." "What's biological mean?" "It means he's the person who, along with me, helped make you. But being a parent isn't just about biology. It's about being there every day, taking care of you, loving you." And he wasn't there. Why not? Maya's voice was starting to get sleepy, because sometimes adults make mistakes, and he made a very big mistake when he decided not to be part of our lives. "Maybe he wants to now," Marcus said, ever the optimist. "Maybe he was sad because he misses us." Sarah's throat closed up. "Maybe. But baby, I need you to understand something. Whatever happens with him, it doesn't change us. We're a team, the 3 of us. We take care of each other, and nothing and nobody can change that, okay?" "Okay, Mama," they said in unison. She stayed with them until they both fell asleep, watching the rise and fall of their breathing, memorizing their faces in the dim light from the hallway. These were her babies. She'd carried them, birthed them, raised them alone. She'd been there for every fever, every nightmare, every triumph and disappointment. They were hers, but they were also his, and genetics didn't lie. Every day they got a little older, they looked more like Ethan. Marcus had his exact analytical way of processing information. Maya had his smile, though thankfully combined with Sarah's warmth. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello?" There was a pause, then, "Sarah, it's Ethan. Please don't hang up." Her heart started racing. "How did you get this number?" "It doesn't matter. I need to talk to you. Please." "We have nothing to talk about. We have 2 children to talk about. Our children." "No, my children. I raised them. I was there for every moment of their lives. You don't get to suddenly claim them now." "I know." "You're right. But Sarah, I didn't know. If I had known, you would have what? Actually taken my calls? Actually let me tell you I was pregnant? You made it impossible for me to reach you, Ethan. That was a choice." His voice cracked slightly. "I know. I was wrong. I was so focused on the company, on proving myself to my family, on building something that mattered, that I pushed away the one thing that actually did matter. And I can't change that. I can't get those 5 years back, but I want to do better now. I want to be in their lives if you'll let me." "Why? Because you suddenly developed a conscience? Because seeing them in that IHOP made you feel guilty? You don't get to just show up now and play father. You have to earn that. And honestly, I don't know if you can. Then let me try. Please. I'm not asking to take them away from you or to even see them right now. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I've changed, to prove I can be someone they'd be proud to know." Sarah was crying now, angry tears that she wiped away furiously. "You have no idea what it's been like. Do you know I work 70 hours a week? Do you know there are weeks where I choose between buying them new shoes and paying the electric bill? Do you know I haven't had a full night's sleep in 5 years? Do you know what it's like to try to explain to a 4-year-old why Santa brought the other kids in their class iPads, but only brought them books from the library donation box?" "No," he said quietly. "I don't, but I want to understand. I want to help. I don't want your money, Ethan." "Then what do you want? Tell me what you need. For you, for them, anything. I want you to stay away from us. I want you to let us live our lives without you suddenly showing up and disrupting everything. I want my children to keep believing that families come in all shapes and sizes and that we're complete just the way we are. I can't do that. Not anymore. Now that I know they exist, I can't just walk away. You did before. You're very good at walking away. The silence that followed was heavy with 5 years of pain and regret. Finally, Ethan said, I deserved that. I deserved worse than that. But Sarah, whether you like it or not, I am their father, legally, biologically, and in every way that matters. And I'm not going to disappear. But I also don't want to make your life harder. So tell me what you want. How can we make this work? Sarah looked at her sleeping children, at Maya's hand clutching her worn stuffed elephant, at Marcus's face peaceful in sleep. I need time to think, to figure out what's best for them. Not what's best for you or what makes you feel less guilty. What's best for Maya and Marcus? Okay, I can give you time. But Sarah, I need you to know something. I'm not the man I was 5 years ago. I've spent the last 2 days trying to understand the world you've been living in, the struggles you've been facing, and I'm committed to doing better. Not just for them, but because it's the right thing to do. Words are easy, Ethan. Actions are what matter. Then watch my actions. I won't force anything. I won't show up unannounced. I won't try to buy my way into their lives. But I will be here, ready and waiting for whenever you decide I've earned the right to meet them properly. Does that work? Sarah wanted to say no, wanted to tell him to go to hell and leave them alone forever. But she kept looking at her children, at their faces that were half his, and she knew that someday they would ask more questions. Someday they would want to know their father, and maybe denying them that relationship was hurting them more than protecting them. Fine, she said finally. But Ethan, if you hurt them, if you let them down the way you let me down, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. Do you understand me? Completely. And Sarah, thank you for raising them, for being strong enough to do it alone, for giving them a life full of love, even when you didn't have any help. Thank you. She hung up before she started crying harder, sat there in the dark with her sleeping children, and tried to process the fact that after 5 years of building a life without him, Ethan Clark was about to become part of their world again. She had no idea if this was the right decision, but she knew that her babies deserved a chance to know their father, even if she wasn't sure he deserved a chance to know them. Tomorrow she would wake up and go to work and come home and make dinner and give baths and read bedtime stories. Tomorrow would be like every other day for the last 5 years, except now there would be this presence hovering at the edges of their lives, waiting for an invitation to step into the light. Sarah lay down on the pull-out couch in the living room, staring at the ceiling with its water stain in the corner that she'd been meaning to fix for months. Somewhere in Manhattan, Ethan was probably lying in some ridiculously expensive bed, staring at his own ceiling, thinking about the same 2 children. The difference was that she'd been doing this every night for 5 years, and he was just starting to understand what it meant to be a parent who would do anything, sacrifice anything, for those 2 perfect souls sleeping in the next room. She just hoped he was ready for what that actually meant, because being a parent wasn't about money or power or being able to solve problems with resources. It was about showing up every single day, even when you were exhausted, even when you had nothing left to give, even when it was hard. And Ethan Clark had never done anything that hard in his entire privileged life. 3 weeks passed before Ethan heard from Sarah again, and they were the longest 3 weeks of his life. He kept his promise not to show up uninvited or not to push, but he didn't stay idle either. He watched, he learned, he changed. The child care center at New Hope Community Center opened 2 weeks after his donation. Margaret called him personally to describe the tears of joy from parents who finally had safe, affordable care for their children. The center could serve 40 kids with a waiting list of 60 more. Ethan immediately approved funding to expand capacity. He drove through Crown Heights and Bed-Stuy, neighborhoods he'd never bothered to visit before, despite living in New York for a decade. He saw schools with outdated equipment, playgrounds with broken swings, bodegas that charged too much because they were the only option for blocks. He saw the world Sarah lived in, and it made him physically ill to think about his children growing up here while he lived in luxury 40 blocks away. But he also saw the strength of these communities, the way neighbors looked out for each other, the murals celebrating local heroes, the small businesses that survived against all odds, the churches and community centers that provided services the government had abandoned. This world had produced Sarah, who was stronger and braver than anyone in his corporate circle. Maybe it wasn't about the world being wrong. Maybe it was about him being wrong about the world. He met with his lawyers, not to discuss custody, but to discuss how to set up a trust fund for the twins that Sarah couldn't refuse. Something that would be there for college, for emergencies, for their future. His lawyer, Theodore Blackwell, the best family law attorney in New York, listened to his plan and then said something unexpected. Mr. Clark, I need to be honest with you. If you wanted to pursue custody, you'd have a strong case. You have resources, stability, the ability to provide things this woman clearly cannot. A court would likely grant you at least shared custody. I don't want shared custody, Ethan said immediately. I want to be invited into my children's lives, not to force my way in legally. That's very noble, but it may not be practical. She has no legal obligation to let you see these children. She could move to California tomorrow and you'd have no recourse. Then I'd follow her to California. But I'm not going to threaten her with lawyers. I'm not going to use my money and power to bully her into letting me be a father. I'm going to earn it. Theodore looked at him like he'd lost his mind. I've been doing family law for 30 years, and I've never had a client who had this much leverage refuse to use it. Maybe that's why so many families end up destroyed by custody battles. Maybe there's a better way. He left Theodore's office more convinced than ever that the legal route was the wrong answer. He didn't want to be a father because a court said he had the right. He wanted to be a father because his children wanted him there. His mother called regularly asking for updates. When he told her he was giving Sarah space, she approved. When he told her about the childcare center and his other donations to organizations serving low-income families, she said, "You're finally becoming the man I raised you to be." At work, things were chaotic. Marcus Chen was handling the Singapore deal, but the board was panicking about Ethan's sudden disengagement. He attended meetings, but his heart wasn't in it. He signed off on decisions that would have consumed him weeks ago with barely a glance. His COO finally pulled him aside and asked if he was planning to step down. "No," Ethan said, "but I'm reassessing what matters. This company will survive without my full attention for a few months. My family won't." "You don't have a family, Ethan. You've been married to this company for 5 years. That's changing, and honestly, maybe it's long overdue." On a Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks after the IHOP encounter, Ethan was in a meeting about Q4 projections when his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Sarah. The twins have a school spring concert next Friday at 6 p.m. at PS 161. If you want to come, you can, but you sit in the back and you don't approach us. You just watch. That's all I'm offering right now." Ethan stared at the text for a solid 30 seconds before realizing his entire board was staring at him. "We need to reschedule," he said, standing up. "Something important just came up." "More important than $50 million in projected revenue?" his CFO asked incredulously. "Yes." He walked out without explanation. He called his mother from the car. "She's letting me come to their school concert. Eleanor, I'm going to see them perform. I don't know what they're performing. I don't know anything except it's next Friday at 6 p.m. "Ethan, slow down. What do you wear to a kindergarten concert?" "I have no idea." "What do parents wear?" "Not a Tom Ford suit. You'll look ridiculous. Wear jeans and a button-down. Try to look like a normal person." "I don't own jeans." "Then buy some." "And Ethan." "Yeah? Don't mess this up. This is your one chance. If you ruin it, she won't give you another." The week crawled by. Ethan did something he hadn't done since college. He went shopping in a normal store, went to the Gap and bought jeans and a plain blue button-down shirt. The sales associate looked confused when he asked if this was appropriate for a school concert. "Are you the dad?" the young woman asked. "Yes, I mean, biologically, yes. Practically speaking, I'm working on it." She smiled. "Then that's perfect. You'll blend right in with all the other nervous parents." He practiced what he'd say if Sarah spoke to him. Practiced looking casual and unthreatening. Practiced being someone who deserved to watch his children perform in a school concert. Friday arrived. Ethan left work at 4 p.m., which caused a minor crisis with his assistant, who had 17 things scheduled after 5. "Cancel them," he said. "I have somewhere more important to be." He drove to Crown Heights, found PS 161, a 3-story brick building that looked like every public school built in the 1960s. The gymnasium was already filling up with parents and grandparents, people carrying flowers and cameras, everyone dressed casually, exactly like his mother had predicted. He found a seat in the very back row, as instructed. From here, he could see the small stage where chairs were set up for what looked like about 40 kindergarteners. Teachers were herding children into lines, fixing collars, reminding them not to touch their faces after they'd used hand sanitizer, and then he saw them. Maya and Marcus, standing near the front of one line. Maya wore a purple dress that looked slightly too big, with white tights and black shoes that were scuffed at the toes. Marcus wore khaki pants and a blue polo shirt, and he was nervously adjusting his collar the way Ethan did when he was anxious. They looked perfect, healthy, and happy and loved despite everything, despite having a mother who worked herself to exhaustion and could barely afford their clothes. Sarah appeared from the side of the gym, and Ethan's breath caught. She'd come straight from work, still in her scrubs, but she'd put on lipstick and done something different with her hair. She was looking around anxiously, probably worried he'd break his promise and try to approach her. He stayed in his seat, made himself as invisible as possible. The concert started. 40 kindergarteners butchering "You Are My Sunshine," while parents recorded on their phones and teachers conducted with enthusiastic gestures. It should have been chaotic and slightly painful to listen to. Instead, it was the most beautiful thing Ethan had ever experienced. Marcus sang seriously, concentrating on getting every word right. Maya sang with her whole body, swaying and gesturing, occasionally forgetting the words and humming instead. They were perfect. They were his, and he'd missed 4 years of concerts and performances and moments exactly like this. Halfway through, somewhere over the rainbow, something broke inside Ethan's chest. He was crying, actually crying, in the back row of a school gymnasium, and he didn't care who saw. He'd built companies and closed billion-dollar deals and been profiled in Forbes, and none of it meant anything compared to watching his 5-year-old children sing off-key about rainbows and bluebirds. When the concert ended, parents rushed forward to collect their kids. Sarah moved through the crowd to Maya and Marcus, kneeling down to their level, telling them how wonderful they were, hugging them tight. The twins were beaming, holding hand-drawn programs they'd made in art class. And then Marcus looked past his mother, scanning the crowd, and his eyes landed on Ethan in the back row. Recognition flashed across his face. He said something to Sarah, pointing. Sarah turned, and their eyes met across the gym. She looked exhausted and beautiful and terrified. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Sarah said something to the twins, and all 3 of them started walking toward him. Ethan stood up, his heart racing. He'd imagined this moment 1,000 times in the last 3 weeks, but now that it was happening, he had no idea what to say. Sarah stopped about 5 feet away, keeping the twins slightly behind her. "Marcus saw you," she said quietly. "He wanted to say hello." "Hi," Marcus said, stepping forward slightly. "You came to our concert." "I did," Ethan managed. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "You both sang beautifully. I forgot the words in the middle part," Maya admitted. "But Mama says that's okay, because I sang with my heart." "Your mama is right. That's the most important part." There was an awkward silence. Other families were leaving, the gym slowly emptying. Sarah looked like she wanted to run, but was forcing herself to stay. "Thank you," Ethan said, looking at Sarah, "for letting me come, for letting me see this. I know it wasn't easy. They deserved to have someone here cheering for them besides me," Sarah said quietly. "Even if that someone is complicated. Can I ask you something?" Marcus was looking at Ethan with those analytical eyes. "Are you really our biological father?" Sarah went pale. "Marcus, Mama told us what biological means. She said you helped make us, but you weren't there. So I want to know if it's true." Ethan looked at Sarah, asking permission. She nodded slightly. He knelt down, getting on Marcus's level. "Yes, I am your biological father, and your mother is right that I wasn't there. I made mistakes, really big mistakes, and I missed the first 5 years of your lives. That's something I'll regret forever, but I want to be here now, if you'll let me. If your mother says it's okay." "Why weren't you there before?" Maya asked, and her voice had an edge that reminded Ethan of Sarah's strength. "Because I was scared and stupid, and I thought other things were more important. I was wrong. Nothing is more important than family. I just didn't understand that yet." "Do you understand it now?" Marcus asked. "I'm learning. Your mother has been an excellent teacher, even though I didn't deserve her patience." The twins looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that twins had. Then Maya said, "Mama works really hard for us. If you want to be our father, you have to work hard too. You can't just show up sometimes and then leave." "I won't leave," Ethan said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. "If you give me a chance, I promise I won't leave. Promises are important," Marcus said seriously. "You shouldn't make them if you can't keep them." "I know, and I'm making this promise because I intend to keep it for the rest of my life." Sarah was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Ethan stood up slowly. "Sarah, I know I don't deserve this. I know I've done nothing to earn your trust, but I meant what I said that night on the phone. I'm not the man I was 5 years ago. I want to be better. I want to be someone these kids can be proud of." "Words are easy," she said. echoing what she'd told him before. Then give me a chance to show you through actions. Let me prove it. Not by throwing money at you, not by using lawyers or pressure or anything else, just by showing up consistently for them, for as long as it takes to earn my way into their lives properly. Sarah looked down at Maya and Marcus. What do you two think? Do we give him a chance? The twins had another silent conversation. Then Marcus said, "Can we get ice cream and talk about it?" Despite everything, Sarah laughed. "You just want ice cream." "Yes, but also we should talk about it. That's what you always say. When something is important, we should talk about it." Ethan's heart swelled. "I know a place, a few blocks from here. Unless you have somewhere else in mind, the place with the 50 flavors. Maya's eyes went wide. "Mama never takes us there because it's too expensive." "Then that's where we're going," Ethan said and looked at Sarah. "If that's okay with you?" Sarah hesitated, and he could see the war happening behind her eyes, the part of her that wanted to protect her children from disappointment, the part that remembered how badly he'd hurt her, the part that was exhausted and didn't know if she had the energy for this complication. But she looked at her children's faces, hopeful and excited, and she sighed. "One ice cream. That's it. This isn't a promise of anything more. It's just ice cream. Just ice cream." Ethan agreed, though they both knew it was so much more than that. They walked out of the school together, this strange new family unit that didn't quite fit together yet. Sarah kept the twins between them, a physical reminder of the boundary that still existed. But they were walking in the same direction, and that was more than Ethan had dared hope for 3 weeks ago. The ice cream shop was called Sweet Dreams, and it was exactly the kind of place Ethan normally would have walked past without noticing. Bright colors, sticky floors, kids pressing their faces against the glass display case. But tonight, it felt like the most important location in the world. Marcus chose mint chocolate chip after careful consideration of all 50 flavors. Maya changed her mind 3 times before settling on cookie dough. Sarah ordered vanilla, simple and practical. Ethan ordered the same. They sat at a corner table, the twins between them like a demilitarized zone. For a few minutes, everyone just ate ice cream in silence. Then Marcus said, "Can I ask you questions?" "Of course," Ethan said. "What do you do for work?" "I run a technology company. We make software that helps other businesses work better." "Is it fun?" "Sometimes. It's challenging, which makes it interesting. But honestly, being here with you right now is more fun than anything I've done at work in 5 years." "Do you have other kids?" Maya asked. "No, you two are my only children. The only family I have besides my parents." "Why didn't you want to be with Mama?" Marcus's question was blunt, and Sarah looked mortified. "Marcus, that's not appropriate." "No, it's okay," Ethan interrupted. He looked at Sarah. "They deserve honest answers, right?" She nodded reluctantly. Ethan turned back to Marcus. "I was scared. I was young, and I thought I had to focus all my energy on my work to be successful. I thought having a family would distract me from my goals. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about a lot of things. And by the time I realized how wrong I was, 5 years had gone by, and I'd missed everything." "Are you still scared?" Maya asked. "Terrified. I'm scared I'll mess this up. I'm scared you won't like me. I'm scared your mother won't forgive me. But I'm here anyway because you deserve a father who shows up even when he's scared." "Mama's scared sometimes too," Marcus said matter-of-factly. "She cries at night sometimes when she thinks we're asleep, but she still takes care of us every day." Sarah's face crumbled slightly. "Baby, you weren't supposed to know about that. We know lots of things," Maya said gently. "We know you work really hard. We know you don't sleep enough. We know sometimes you eat the smallest piece of food so we can have more. We're not babies, Mama. We pay attention." Ethan felt something crack even wider in his chest. These children, his children, they were smart and observant and kind, and they'd learned how to be those things from Sarah, who'd given them everything, including pieces of herself. "Your mother is the strongest person I've ever met," he said quietly. "She did for 5 years what I'm not sure I could do for 5 days. You're both incredibly lucky to have her." "We know," the twins said in unison. They finished their ice cream. The twins told Ethan about school, about their teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, about how Marcus was good at math and Maya was good at reading. They told him about Miss Rosa, who watched them after school and let them help her cook arroz con gandules. They told him about their apartment with the bathroom tiles that were always cold and the living room where Mama slept on the couch so they could have the bedroom. Each detail was a knife in Ethan's gut. This was his children's reality. This was the life Sarah had built while he was closing business deals and attending galas. When it was time to leave, the twins hugged Sarah, then hesitated before giving Ethan small, awkward waves. "Thank you for coming to our concert," Marcus said formally. "Thank you for letting me come." They walked outside. Sarah had taken the subway, so Ethan offered to drive them home. She hesitated, then agreed. His Bentley was waiting at the curb, and the twins' eyes went wide. "This is your car?" Maya breathed. "It's so fancy." "It's just a car," Ethan said, but he saw Sarah's face and realized he'd made a mistake. The car was another reminder of the gulf between their worlds, of how much he had while she struggled. The drive to their apartment in Crown Heights was quiet. The twins pressed their faces to the windows, watching the city go by. When they pulled up outside their building, a modest pre-war walk-up on a tree-lined street, Ethan started to get out, but Sarah stopped him. "You don't come up. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't know yet." "I understand." She got the twins out of the car, gathering their backpacks and concert programs. Before she closed the door, she turned back. "You kept your promise. You sat in the back. You didn't push. You were respectful." "I meant what I said. I'm not here to make your life harder." "We'll see." But her voice was slightly softer. "I'll think about whether there can be another visit. Don't call me. I'll call you when I'm ready." "Okay." "And Ethan, they liked you tonight, but kids are easy to charm with ice cream and fancy cars. The hard part comes later, when the novelty wears off and they just need a consistent present father. That's when most men fail." "I won't fail them. I swear to you, Sarah, I won't." She looked at him for a long moment, and he saw the exhaustion and hope and fear all mixed together in her expression. "I really want to believe you, but I've been disappointed before." Then she turned and walked into the building with their children, and Ethan sat in his Bentley outside a building in Crown Heights, watching the light come on in a second-floor window where his children lived in an apartment he'd never seen. His driver, who'd been waiting patiently a block away, pulled up. "Shall I take you home, Mr. Clark?" "Yeah, home." But as they drove back to Manhattan, Ethan realized that home wasn't his penthouse anymore. Home was wherever Maya and Marcus were. Home was the smile on Sarah's face when she'd hugged her children after the concert. Home was the sound of his son asking serious questions and his daughter singing with her whole heart. He'd spent 5 years building an empire. Now he had to figure out how to build a family. And unlike business, there were no shortcuts, no aggressive negotiating tactics, no way to close the deal through force of will. He had to earn it. Day by day, moment by moment, by showing up and being consistent and proving through actions that he was worthy of being called their father. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother. "How did it go?" He typed back, "They're perfect, Mom, and I have so far to go to deserve them, but I'm going to do it, whatever it takes." Her response came immediately. "That's my son. Now go home and get some sleep." Building a relationship with your children is a marathon, not a sprint. Ethan looked out the window at the city lights, at the world that suddenly looked completely different than it had a month ago. Somewhere in Brooklyn, Sarah was tucking Maya and Marcus into bed, reading them a story, telling them she loved them, doing all the things she'd done alone for 5 years. Tomorrow she'd wake up at 5:30 a.m. and do it all again. Work 2 jobs, survive on minimal sleep, give her children everything she had, and then dig deeper to give them even more. And Ethan would wake up in his penthouse and go to his office and try to figure out how to be worthy of the woman who'd done all of that without him, and the children who deserved so much more than a biological father who'd only just shown up. He'd closed billion-dollar deals. He'd built a company from nothing. He'd been featured in magazines and praised by industry leaders. None of that prepared him for this. Nothing in his life had prepared him to be a father to 2 perfect children who barely knew him, or to earn forgiveness from a woman he'd abandoned when she needed him most. But he was going to figure it out, because for the first time in his life, Ethan Clark understood what actually mattered, and he wasn't going to waste this second chance. 4 months later, Sarah stood in her apartment looking at the letter in her hands, reading it for the 3rd time because she couldn't quite believe what it said. "Dear Miss Montgomery, we are pleased to inform you that you have been awarded a full scholarship to the nursing program at NYU. This includes tuition, books, and a living stipend." Her hands were shaking. She'd applied on a whim, encouraged by Dr. Patel, who told her she was wasting her potential as a medical assistant, that she could be so much more if she had the education. But she'd never expected to actually get in. much less get a full scholarship. The living stipend would mean she could quit one of her jobs, actually sleep at night, have time with her children that wasn't rushed and exhausted. There was a knock on her door. She knew who it was before she opened it. Ethan had been coming every Wednesday and Saturday for the last 3 months, taking the twins to the park or the library or the children's museum. He'd been consistent, reliable, showing up even when it rained, even when he had work crises, even when it would have been easier not to. The twins had started calling him Mr. Ethan a month ago. Last week, Marcus had slipped and called him Dad before immediately correcting himself, his face turning red with embarrassment. Ethan had handled it perfectly, kneeling down, saying, "You can call me Dad if you want to, when you're ready. No pressure." Marcus had thought about it, then said, "Maybe sometimes, when it feels right." Now Sarah opened the door, and Ethan stood there in his jeans and button-down shirt, looking nothing like the billionaire CEO, and everything like a man trying to be a father. He was carrying books, new ones, because he'd learned that the twins loved to read, and the library books they got were sometimes falling apart. "Hi," he said, and she saw the hope in his eyes that she'd let him come in, that this visit would last longer than the others. "Hi, come in. I need to talk to you about something." His face went carefully neutral. "Okay." The twins were at Miss Rosa's for another hour, so they had the apartment alone. Sarah gestured for him to sit on the couch, the same pull-out couch she'd been sleeping on for 5 years. She handed him the letter. "I got into nursing school, full scholarship." He read it, and his face transformed with genuine joy. "Sarah, that's amazing. You absolutely deserve this. You're going to be an incredible nurse. I couldn't have applied without the extra time. The time I got when I quit my night job 2 months ago." They'd had this argument before. 2 months ago, a mysterious grant had appeared at the clinic, specifically designated for employee raises and benefits. Sarah's salary had increased by $8 an hour, enough that she could quit the home health aide work. Dr. Patel had insisted it wasn't from Ethan, that it was a legitimate grant from a foundation. But Sarah knew. She'd been furious at first, feeling like he was buying his way in. But Ethan had looked her in the eye and said, "Even if that grant was from me, which doctor? Patel assures you it wasn't. Why would that be wrong? You're the mother of my children. Why shouldn't I want to make your life easier? Not to buy access to them, but because it's the right thing to do." She hadn't had a good answer for that. "I'm glad you had the time to apply," Ethan said now. "You're going to change lives as a nurse. Your patients will be lucky to have you. It's a 2-year program, full-time. I'll have to arrange my work schedule at the clinic around classes. It's going to be hard. You've done harder things. You've raised 2 children alone. This is investing in your future, in their future." She sat down across from him. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Always. The grant at the clinic, the childcare center at New Hope, the new computers at the twins' school, the playground renovation in our neighborhood. That's all you, isn't it?" He didn't deny it. "Some of it is through my foundation. Some is through my mother's foundation. Does it matter? It matters if you're trying to buy your way into our lives. I'm not. I'm trying to make the world, my children, live in a better place. Whether you ever fully forgive me or not, whether they ever call me Dad or not, I want them to grow up in a neighborhood with good schools and safe playgrounds. I want their mother to have opportunities she deserves. That's not buying anything. That's doing what I should have been doing all along." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "They love you, you know. Maya told me last night that she wishes you could come over more often. Marcus asked me yesterday if you could come to his soccer game next week. Can I?" Ethan's voice was almost desperate with hope. "Yes, and Ethan, I've been thinking about how you've shown up every week for 4 months, about how you never push for more than I'm ready to give, about how you talk to them like they're real people, not just cute kids, about how you've kept every single promise you've made. I told you I would. I know, but I've spent 5 years not trusting you, and it's hard to let that go." She took a deep breath. "But I think I'm ready to try. Not all at once, but maybe we can do more than just park visits. Maybe you can come to dinner sometimes. Maybe when school starts in the fall, you can help with homework. Maybe we can figure out what co-parenting looks like when the parents aren't together." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Sarah, thank you. I promise I won't let you down. If you do, I'll kick you out of our lives so fast you won't know what happened. But I don't think you will. You've changed, Ethan. I don't know if it's permanent, but right now, you're not the man who told me I didn't fit into his world. That man was an idiot, and you're right that I've changed. My mother says I'm finally the man she raised me to be, but honestly, I changed because of you. Because watching you raise our children alone with grace and strength and love made me realize what it actually means to be a good person. You set the bar, Sarah. I'm just trying to reach it. The door flew open and the twins burst in, Miss Rosa trailing behind them apologetically. Sorry, they saw the car outside and insisted on coming up early, Rosa said. Mr. Ethan! Maya flew at him and he caught her, lifting her up, and Sarah saw the pure joy on his face. Marcus was more reserved, but he came over and leaned against Ethan's knee. Did you bring books? I did. Want to read them with me? Yes. Sarah watched as Ethan settled onto the floor with a child on each side, opening the first book, using different voices for different characters, making them laugh. This was what she'd wanted all along. Not his money, not his power, just this, a father who showed up, who paid attention, who loved them. Miss Rosa came to stand beside her. He's good with them. Yeah, he is. You going to give him a real chance? Or just supervised visits forever? I'm going to try. He's earned that much. Good. Those babies deserve a father. And you deserve a partner, even if it takes a while to get there. Later, after Ethan had read 3 books and played a complicated game involving toy cars and stuffed animals, after he'd helped Sarah make dinner despite her insistence that he didn't have to, after they'd all eaten spaghetti at the small kitchen table that barely fit 4 people, after he'd helped with the twins' bath time and been entrusted to read bedtime stories for the first time ever, Sarah walked him to the door. Thank you for today, she said. Thank you for letting me be here, for trusting me with them. Ethan, I need you to understand something. This isn't me forgiving you completely. I still have anger about the past. I still remember what it felt like to call you 37 times and be ignored every single time. I still remember being pregnant and alone and terrified. That doesn't just disappear because you've been a good dad for 4 months. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for that. Not because I think I can erase it, but because you deserve to know how sorry I am. Because our children deserve to see their father be accountable for his mistakes. She nodded. Okay, then let's take this one day at a time. Come to Marcus's soccer game on Saturday. Then we'll figure out what comes next. I'll be there, front row, loudest cheering section. After he left, Sarah stood in her apartment, in the space that had been her entire world for 5 years, and felt something shift. The apartment didn't feel quite as small anymore. The future didn't feel quite as scary. She had nursing school starting in the fall. She had a daughter and son who were healthy and happy, and she had a co-parent who was finally stepping up, even if they had a long way to go before she could fully trust him again. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Thank you for tonight, for letting me be part of their bedtime routine. It meant everything. Sleep well, Sarah. She typed back. You did good today. Keep it up. His response came immediately. I will. I promise. And for the first time in 5 years, Sarah believed him. 2 years later, Sarah graduated from NYU's nursing program at the top of her class. Ethan was there in the audience, along with Eleanor Clark, who'd become a surprising ally and friend, and Miss Rosa, who cried through the entire ceremony. Maya and Marcus, now 7 years old, held a sign they'd made that said, "Our mama is a nurse," with drawings of stethoscopes and hearts. After the ceremony, as Sarah stood in her cap and gown accepting congratulations, Marcus tugged on her sleeve. "Mama, can Dad come to our celebration dinner?" It had taken 18 months, but one day Marcus had just started calling Ethan Dad without fanfare or discussion. Maya had followed a month later. It had made Ethan cry, which had made the twins uncomfortable until Sarah explained that sometimes adults cried when they were happy. Of course he can come, Sarah said, looking across the crowd to where Ethan was talking with Dr. Patel. As if sensing her gaze, he looked over and smiled, the kind of smile that transformed his entire face. They'd been co-parenting successfully for 2 years. Ethan had an apartment now in Crown Heights, 5 blocks from Sarah's place. The twins spent Wednesday nights and every other weekend with him. He'd learned how to pack school lunches and do laundry and handle homework meltdowns. He coached Marcus's soccer team and attended every one of Maya's dance recitals. He'd been there for ear infections and parent-teacher conferences and the day-to-day reality of being a parent. He'd also been there for Sarah in ways that went beyond co-parenting. When she was overwhelmed with nursing school, he'd taken the twins extra nights. When she needed to study, he'd made sure she had quiet time. When she'd broken down crying during finals week, convinced she was going to fail, he'd reminded her of everything she'd already accomplished, everything she'd overcome. They weren't together romantically. Neither of them was ready for that. and maybe they never would be. But they'd built something else, a partnership based on respect and shared love for their children. It wasn't what either of them had imagined 5 years ago, but it was real and solid and good. At dinner that night, at a restaurant nicer than anywhere Sarah would have chosen on her own, Ethan raised his glass, a toast, to Sarah, who just proved what I already knew, that she's capable of absolutely anything she sets her mind to the best mother our children could ask for, and now officially the nurse who's going to change countless lives. We're all so proud of you. To Mama, the twins chorused, raising their glasses of apple juice. Eleanor added, and to the family you've built, all of you. It's not traditional, but it's beautiful. Later, walking back to Sarah's apartment, the twins running ahead with Miss Rosa, Ethan said quietly, I know I've said it before, but I'm sorry. For everything you had to do alone, for every night you cried, for every time you struggled. I can't change the past, but I want you to know that watching you achieve this, helping your dreams come true, even in this small way, it matters to me. You matter to me. I know, Sarah said. And Ethan, I forgive you. I don't know when it happened exactly, but somewhere along the way, I let go of the anger. You've shown me through 2 years of consistent actions that you've changed, that you're someone I can trust with our children. That's all I ever needed. Does this mean we're friends? He said it lightly, but she heard the hope underneath. Yeah, I think we might be friends. Weird, complicated, co-parenting friends who have a lot of history and 2 kids and completely different lives. But friends, I'll take it. They reached her building. The twins ran up to hug Ethan goodbye, and he held them tight, breathing in the moment, storing it away. See you Wednesday, Marcus asked. Absolutely. And Saturday is Maya's dance recital, so I'll be at both. You come to everything, Maya observed. You never miss stuff. That's because you're both the most important thing in my life. I'll never miss your stuff if I can help it. After they went upstairs, Ethan stood on the sidewalk for a moment, looking up at the building. Sarah appeared in the window, and she waved. He waved back. His driver pulled up, but Ethan told him to wait. He walked to the corner bodega, the same one where Sarah had bought those birthday cupcakes 3 years ago. He bought flowers, simple daisies, because Sarah had mentioned once that they reminded her of her grandmother. He brought them back to the building and left them outside her door with a note. Congratulations, Sarah. You deserve every good thing. Ethan. Then he got in his car and drove back to Manhattan to the office where he still ran Clark Technologies, though now with better balance and perspective. The Singapore deal had gone through eventually. The company was thriving, but it wasn't his whole life anymore. His whole life was split between a penthouse in Manhattan, an apartment in Crown Heights, soccer fields and dance recitals, homework help and bedtime stories, and the complicated, beautiful relationship he'd built with the woman who'd given him 2 perfect children and somehow found it in her heart to forgive him for being too blind to see what mattered until it was almost too late. It wasn't the life he'd planned 5 years ago. It was infinitely better. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah with a photo of the daisies. Thank you. They're beautiful. He typed back, not as beautiful as watching you achieve your dreams. Proud of you, Sarah. Her response came a minute later. Proud of you too, for becoming the man and father you are now. The twins are lucky to have you. We're all lucky to have each other, even if it took me way too long to figure that out. Better late than never. Ethan smiled, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere in Brooklyn, his children were going to bed. His ex-girlfriend, who'd become his friend and co-parent, was probably studying or finally getting a full night's sleep, and the world kept turning. He'd learned what actually mattered, not money or power or success. Connection, family, showing up, being present, earning trust through consistent actions. And he'd learned that sometimes the worst mistakes of your life could become opportunities for redemption if you were willing to do the work, be patient, and prove through every action that you'd changed. It had taken 2 years and 4 months, but Ethan Clark had finally become someone worthy of being called a father, and he was just getting started. 3 months after Sarah's graduation on a sunny September afternoon, Ethan sat in the bleachers watching Marcus's soccer game when his mother called. I need you to come to the house this evening, family meeting. His stomach clenched. Eleanor only called family meetings for serious matters. Is everything okay? Your health? I'm fine. This isn't about me. It's about your father. Ethan's relationship with his father had been strained since he'd started prioritizing the twins over work. Richard Clark didn't understand why his son wasn't at the office 80 hours a week anymore, why he turned down business trips that conflicted with soccer games, why he'd restructured his entire life around two children who shouldn't have existed in the first place. They'd had a terrible fight 6 months ago, where Richard had said, "You're wasting your potential on a woman who's not your wife, and children you didn't plan for. You're throwing away everything you've built." Ethan had responded, "I'm finally building the things that actually matter." They hadn't spoken since. "What about Dad?" Ethan asked now, watching Marcus steal the ball from the other team and race down the field. He had a health scare this week. Nothing serious, but it made him think. "We need to have a conversation about the family business, about succession planning, about what happens next." "Mom, I already told you I'm not leaving the twins for months at a time to expand internationally. If Dad can't accept that, then maybe I'm not the right person to take over. Just come tonight, please, 7 p.m. After the game, which Marcus's team won 3-2, Ethan took the twins and Sarah to their favorite diner for celebratory burgers. As they sat in the booth, Maya meticulously organizing her French fries by size, Marcus told them about the goal he'd almost scored. "Dad was cheering so loud," he said, grinning. "Everyone could hear you. That's because I was so proud. You played amazing." Sarah smiled, but Ethan could tell something was on her mind. After they dropped the twins with Miss Rosa and were walking back to Sarah's apartment, she said, "Your mom called during the game. I saw you answer. Everything okay?" They'd gotten better at this, sharing things with each other, co-parenting as a team. "Family meeting tonight. Something about my dad and the business. Are they going to pressure you again about working more?" "Probably. My dad doesn't understand why I won't sacrifice everything for Clark Technologies the way he did. Because you learned from watching what that did to your relationship with him," Sarah said quietly. "The twins tell me stories about you and your dad, how he was always working, how you barely saw him growing up. You're breaking that cycle." "I'm trying to. But sometimes I wonder if I'm being selfish. The company employs thousands of people. My decisions affect all of them. And your decisions as a father affect 2 specific people for the rest of their lives. Which seems more important to you?" Put that way, there was no contest. That evening, Ethan arrived at his parents' Park Avenue mansion, the house he'd grown up in, but never really felt at home. His father was in the study, looking older than Ethan remembered, thinner. The health scare, whatever it was, had clearly shaken him. His mother poured bourbon for all of them, though she barely touched her own. "Your father has something to say," she prompted. Richard Clark didn't look at his son. "I had a heart attack. Minor one, but a heart attack nonetheless. Doctor says I need to reduce stress, cut back my hours, maybe retire in the next year or 2. Ethan set his glass down carefully. "Dad, I'm sorry. Why didn't you tell me when it happened? We weren't speaking, and I was angry. Still am angry, if I'm honest. You had everything, Ethan. You were on track to build something even bigger than what I built, and then you threw it all away for a woman who was never right for you and children who were an accident." "Richard," Eleanor warned, but Ethan held up his hand. "No, let him finish. Let's get it all out there. Fine. You're wasting your potential. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. You're choosing a life of mediocrity over greatness. I raised you to be more than a weekend father to accident children." The words were knives, but Ethan felt strangely calm. "Are you done?" "I suppose." "Good, because I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. Those accident children are the best thing that ever happened to me. They saved my life, Dad. Not literally, but in every way that matters. Before I knew they existed, I was turning into you, obsessed with work, disconnected from everything real, measuring my worth in dollars and deals. I was successful and completely empty. There's nothing wrong with dedication to your work. There is when it's the only thing you have. When did you last have a conversation with Mom that wasn't about business? When did you last do something just because it made you happy? When did you last feel joy that wasn't tied to a profit margin?" Richard's face was red. "I built an empire. I gave you every advantage. I made sure you wanted for nothing, except a father who was actually present. I had everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. Do you know what Marcus asked me last week? He asked if when I was a kid, my dad came to my soccer games, and I had to tell him no, that you were always working. And you know what he said? He said, 'That's sad. My dad comes to all my games.'" Something flickered in Richard's eyes. "I provided for you. I know you did, and I'm grateful. But Dad, I'm providing for my children too, just in a different way. I'm providing them with memories and time and presence, with a father who knows what they're afraid of and what makes them laugh and what they dream about, with a model of what it means to be a person, not just a businessman. You can be both." Yes, you can, and I am. I still run Clark Technologies. We're more profitable now than when I was working 80-hour weeks because I delegated, built a better team, and made smarter decisions instead of just more decisions. But I do it in 40 to 50 hours a week, and the rest of my time belongs to Maya and Marcus. That's not mediocrity, Dad. That's called having a life. Eleanor was crying quietly. Richard was staring at his bourbon. Your mother thinks I should apologize, Richard said finally. Do you think you should apologize? I think I'm scared. I had a heart attack, Ethan. I'm 72 years old. And when I was lying in that hospital bed, I wasn't thinking about the business. I was thinking about how I barely know my son anymore, how I've never met my grandchildren, how I spent so much time building something that will be forgotten in a generation, and I missed building something that would have lasted forever. Ethan felt his anger deflate. They're not just my children, Dad. They're your grandchildren. You could know them if you wanted to. Would Sarah even let me near them after the things I've said about her? Sarah is the most forgiving person I've ever met. If you were genuine, if you respected her and her choices and her strength, she'd give you a chance. That's what she does. She gives people chances even when they don't deserve them. Eleanor spoke up. Richard, you told me once that your biggest regret was not being there for Ethan growing up. You said you'd built a company, but lost your son in the process. Don't make that mistake twice. Don't let your grandchildren grow up not knowing you because you're too stubborn to admit you were wrong. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Richard said, I don't know how to be a grandfather. I wasn't very good at being a father. You could learn, Ethan said gently, the same way I learned, by showing up, by trying, by putting them first sometimes, instead of always putting work first. What if I'm too old to change? You're not. If I could change, you can change, but you have to want to. Another long silence. Then, what are their names again? I know you told me, but Marcus and Maya. They're 7.5 now. Marcus loves soccer and math. Maya loves dance and reading. They're brilliant and funny and kind, and they deserve to know their grandfather, if he's willing to be someone worth knowing. Richard looked at his son, really looked at him for the first time in months. I've been a terrible father to you. I pushed you too hard, expected too much. Never told you I was proud of you unless it was about business. I know. I'm proud of you now, for the man you've become, for choosing your children over everything else, for being better than I was. Your mother's been telling me that for months, but I couldn't hear it until now. Ethan felt something crack in his chest, the same feeling he'd had in the IHOP when he first saw his children. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. So what do I do now? How do I meet them? We start slow. Maybe you and Mom come to dinner at Sarah's apartment next week. Just a casual meal, no pressure. You meet the twins. You're respectful to Sarah, and you see where it goes from there. And if I mess it up, then you apologize and try again. That's what I've been doing for 2.5 years. It's called being accountable. Eleanor stood up and hugged Ethan tightly. Thank you for being patient with your father, for giving him a chance. I learned from the best, Ethan said, looking at her. You gave me a chance even when I didn't deserve it. After leaving his parents' house, Ethan called Sarah. It was late, past the twins' bedtime, but she answered on the first ring. Hey, how was the family meeting? He told her everything, about his father's heart attack, about the conversation, about his dad wanting to meet the twins. What do you think? He asked. I know he said terrible things about you. I won't push this if you're not comfortable. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Does he actually want to change? Or does he just feel guilty because he had a health scare? Honestly, probably both. But I think the health scare made him realize what he's missing. And I think he's genuinely sorry. He's just not good at expressing emotions that aren't related to quarterly earnings. She laughed softly. Okay, dinner next week. But ground rules. He has to be respectful to me and the twins. He doesn't get to criticize our lives or how we live, and if he starts acting superior or dismissive, I'm ending the dinner immediately. Completely fair. Thank you, Sarah, for being willing to even try. Your mom has been texting me for months, you know. She's been wonderful. Sends the twins books and little gifts for no reason. Calls me to ask how nursing school was going. She's been the grandmother they never had on my side. She told me she adores you. Said you're the daughter she always wanted. She's been a blessing. So if her husband is willing to try to be a blessing too, I'm willing to give him a chance. But Ethan, one chance. If he hurts those kids or makes them feel less than in any way, he's done. I wouldn't expect anything else. A week later, Ethan's parents came to Crown Heights for dinner. Richard Clark looked deeply uncomfortable in Sarah's modest apartment, but he kept his mouth shut about the size and the furnishings and the general lack of luxury. The twins were initially shy, hiding behind Sarah, but Eleanor swooped in with her warm grandmother energy, and within 10 minutes had them showing her their artwork and favorite books. Richard hung back, watching, clearly out of his depth. Ethan moved to stand beside him. "Just talk to them like they're small adults," he murmured. "Ask them about school, about their interests. Let them lead the conversation." Marcus approached cautiously. "Are you our grandfather?" "I am," Richard said stiffly. "Dad says you run a big company. Is it bigger than Dad's company?" "Actually, your dad's company is bigger now. He's better at business than I was at his age." Marcus's eyes widened. "Really? That's so cool. I want to run a company someday, or maybe be a teacher. I haven't decided yet." Something in Richard's face softened. "You have time to decide. What do you like about teaching?" "I like helping people understand things. When someone doesn't get something and then I explain it and they go, 'Oh,' like a light bulb turned on. That's the best feeling." "Your dad is very good at that too. Explaining complicated things simply. It's a valuable skill." Maya joined them, less cautious than her brother. "Do you want to see my dance routine? I've been working on it for 3 weeks." And just like that, Richard Clark was sitting on Sarah's couch watching his granddaughter perform a ballet routine to music from her tablet, and there were tears in his eyes. Dinner was awkward at times, stilted at others, but it was real. Richard asked Sarah about nursing school and actually listened to her answers. He told the twins a story from when Ethan was young that even Ethan had never heard. He laughed when Marcus made a joke about vegetables being nature's punishment for kids. When it was time to leave, Marcus hugged his grandfather without prompting. "Will you come back?" Richard looked at Ethan, then at Sarah, then back at Marcus. "If your mother says it's okay, I'd like to come back very much." "It's okay," Sarah said. "You're welcome here." After they left, Sarah and Ethan cleaned up the kitchen together while the twins got ready for bed. "Your dad surprised me," she admitted. "I expected someone colder. He can be, but he's trying. That's all I can ask. Your mom is wonderful, though. She told me she wants to start a college fund for the twins. I tried to say no, but she said it wasn't optional, that every grandmother has the right to spoil her grandchildren." Ethan smiled. "That sounds like her. She's been waiting years to be a grandmother. She's going to go overboard. I'm not used to having family support like this. It's strange, but nice. Really nice." Later, after the twins were asleep and Ethan was preparing to leave, Sarah walked him to the door. "Thank you for your family, for sharing them with us. The twins have never had grandparents before. This is going to mean so much to them. Thank you for giving my dad a chance." "You didn't have to," she shrugged. "People can change. You proved that. If you can go from the man who abandoned me to the man who shows up to every soccer game and dance recital, your dad can learn to be a present grandfather." Ethan wanted to kiss her. The thought came out of nowhere, surprising him. They'd been co-parenting for 2.5 years, had become genuine friends, but there'd never been any romantic possibility. At least he'd never let himself think about it. But standing in her doorway, with his children sleeping in the next room and the memory of family dinner still warm, he wanted to kiss her more than he'd wanted anything in a long time. He didn't. Instead, he said goodnight and walked to his car, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother. "Thank you for tonight, for giving your father a chance with his grandchildren, for becoming the man I knew you could be." Then another text, this one from Sarah. "The twins just told me they really liked their grandparents. Marcus said it's nice having more family. Thank you for that." Ethan sat in his car, reading the messages, and felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Complete. Not happy in a shallow way, but deeply, fundamentally at peace with his life and his choices. He'd lost Sarah once, through cowardice and short-sightedness. He'd missed 5 years of his children's lives through his own mistakes. But somehow, impossibly, he'd been given a second chance. And this time, he wasn't going to waste it. 6 months after Richard Clark met his grandchildren, Ethan sat in Sarah's living room helping Marcus with a math problem, while Sarah made dinner and Maya practiced her lines for the school play. It was a Wednesday evening, one of his regular nights, and it felt normal in the best possible way. "I don't get it," Marcus said, frustrated. "Why does the order matter when you multiply?" "It doesn't, actually. That's the commutative property. 3 times 4 is the same as 4 times 3. Then why are they teaching it this way? To show you the pattern. Look, 3 groups of 4. Ethan drew it out. And 4 groups of 3. Different ways to think about it, but the same answer." "Oh," Marcus's face lit up. "I get it now. This was fatherhood, homework help and dinner prep and practicing lines. It wasn't always profound or dramatic. Most of the time it was just life, and Ethan loved every minute of it." His phone rang. His assistant. Mr. Clark, I'm sorry to interrupt your evening, but the board is requesting an emergency meeting. There's been an issue with the Singapore acquisition. How emergency? They need a decision by tomorrow morning, or the deal falls through. Ethan looked at Marcus, who was now working through the problems independently, tongue poking out in concentration. He looked at Maya, who was dramatically reciting her lines. He looked at Sarah in the kitchen stirring pasta sauce. Call Marcus Chen. He has full authority to handle it. That's why I promoted him to president. But the board specifically requested you. Then tell the board I'm busy being a father tonight, and they'll need to trust the team I built. That's final. He hung up. Sarah had overheard. Everything okay? Yeah, work emergency, but I delegated it. They'll figure it out. You sure? If you need to go, we understand. I'm sure. 5 years ago, I would have dropped everything for a business crisis. Now I know that Marcus Chen is perfectly capable of handling it, and my actual children need me here more than my company needs me there. Sarah smiled, the kind of smile that made his chest feel tight. You really have changed. I had good motivation. After dinner, after homework, after they'd run lines with Maya 17 times until she had them memorized, after baths and bedtime stories, Ethan and Sarah sat on her couch with cups of tea, the twins asleep in the next room. Can I tell you something? Sarah asked. Always. I've been thinking lately about how strange our situation is, how we have this whole co-parenting thing down to a science, how we're genuinely friends, how your parents are part of our lives now. It's weird, right? That this actually worked out. Yeah, it's weird and wonderful. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed together? Back then, I mean, if you hadn't ended things. Ethan considered the question carefully. Honestly, I don't think it would have worked. I wasn't ready. I was too focused on proving myself, too concerned with what my family thought, too immature to understand what actually mattered. We probably would have crashed and burned even worse than we did. But now is different. Now I know what matters. Now I've done the work to become someone worthy of being a partner, not just a biological father. Sarah was quiet for a moment. My lease is up in 2 months. I've been thinking about moving, somewhere with more space, somewhere the twins could each have their own room, somewhere with a better school district. Ethan's heart sank. Are you leaving New York? No. I was thinking maybe. Do you know that building 2 blocks from your place? The one that just got renovated. It has 3 bedroom units. I looked at one last week. It's beautiful, Ethan. A real kitchen, 2 bathrooms, enough space that I wouldn't be sleeping on a pull-out couch anymore. That's amazing. Do you need help with the deposit or first month's rent? Actually, I got a promotion at work, nurse supervisor position. Significant pay increase. I can afford it on my own. She paused. But I was thinking, if I moved there, the twins would be closer to you. You could see them more often. It would be easier for school pickups and spontaneous visits and just being part of their daily lives instead of scheduled custody time. I would love that. Sarah, are you sure? You've been in Crown Heights for years. This is your community. I know. And I'll miss Miss Rosa and the bodega guys who've watched the twins grow up and the neighbors who've been family. But this isn't about leaving. It's about growing. The twins are getting older. They need more space. And honestly, I think I need a fresh start. Somewhere that doesn't remind me of all the years I struggled. I get that. Whatever you need, I'll help. Moving trucks, packing, setting up the new place, anything. I was hoping you'd say that. She smiled. There's one more thing. The building has a guest suite. I was thinking, if you wanted, you could stay there sometimes, on your nights with the twins, so you don't have to take them back and forth between apartments. They could just stay in one place, and we could, I don't know, figure out a system that works better. Like nesting, where the kids stay in one place and the parents rotate? Sort of. I don't know exactly what I'm suggesting. I just know that what we have works, and I want to make it even better for them. Ethan looked at this woman who'd forgiven him for the unforgivable, who'd let him into her children's lives when she had every reason not to, who'd somehow become one of his best friends. I think what you're suggesting is that we're a family, an unconventional one, but a family nonetheless. Yeah, Sarah said softly. I think that's exactly what I'm suggesting. Then let's do it. Let's be a family, whatever that looks like for us. 2 months later, Sarah moved into the new apartment with the twins. Ethan helped along with his parents, Miss Rosa, Dr. Patel, and half the staff from the clinic. It was chaos and laughter and pizza, and the twins running through empty rooms shouting about how big everything was. Marcus got his own room, painted blue with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Maya got her own room, painted purple with a ballet bar Ethan installed himself. Sarah got a real bedroom with a door that closed and a bed that wasn't a pull-out couch. And Ethan got a key to the guest suite with the understanding that he was welcome anytime. that this was his home too, in a way. That first night in the new apartment, they all had dinner together at the new kitchen table that actually fit everyone. The twins were giddy with excitement about their new rooms. Sarah looked lighter, happier, more settled than Ethan had ever seen her. A toast, Eleanor said, raising her glass. To new beginnings and second chances. To family, Richard added, and he actually smiled. To Mama, the twins said together, for working so hard to get us this amazing place. To all of us, Ethan said, looking around the table at these people who'd become his whole world. For figuring out how to make this weird, wonderful, unconventional family work. After dinner, after the twins were settled in their new rooms, after Eleanor and Richard had gone home, after Miss Rosa had extracted promises to visit her often, Sarah and Ethan stood on the small balcony of her new apartment, looking out at the Brooklyn skyline. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything, for becoming someone I could trust to be part of their lives, for showing up every single day for 3 years, for proving that people can change. Thank you for giving me the chance, for forgiving me when I didn't deserve it, for being the strongest person I've ever known." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and he put his arm around her, and they stood there in comfortable silence, listening to the city sounds, feeling the evening breeze. "Ethan, yeah, I think I might be falling in love with you. Not the you from 5 years ago, but the you that you are now, the father and the friend, and the man who helps with math homework and shows up to every dance recital." "Is that crazy?" His heart stopped, then started again, faster. "It's not crazy, because I've been falling in love with you for about a year now. I just didn't think I had the right to say anything." "Why not?" "Because I hurt you so badly before. Because I didn't want to complicate what we've built. Because I was scared I'd mess it up again." She turned to face him. "What if we took it slow? Really slow? What if we just saw where this goes? No pressure, no expectations, just seeing if what we have as friends and co-parents could be something more. I would like that very much. But Sarah, I need you to know something. If we do this, I'm all in. Not like before, when I was too scared to commit. This time I know exactly what I want. You, the twins, this weird, wonderful life we've built together. All of it. Good. Because I'm not interested in anything halfway anymore. I've done the struggle and the heartbreak and the single motherhood. If we do this, we do it right. We build something real and lasting and good. Deal." She kissed him then, soft and careful, like they were both made of glass. And Ethan thought about that night 3 years ago in the IHOP, when his world had exploded, when he discovered he had children, when Sarah had looked at him like he was nothing. He'd spent 3 years earning his way back from nothing, showing up, being consistent, proving through actions that he'd changed. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. He'd found his family, his weird, unconventional, beautiful family. And this time, he wasn't going to let them go. "You know," Sarah said, pulling back slightly, "the twins are going to lose their minds when they figure out we're together." "Are we together?" "I think we might be. Is that okay?" "It's more than okay. It's perfect." From inside the apartment, they heard Maya shout, "Marcus, stop reading and turn off the light. Some of us are trying to sleep." And Marcus's response, "You're not trying very hard if you're yelling." Sarah laughed. "I should go referee before they wake up the whole building. I'll come with you. We're a team, remember?" "Yeah," she said, taking his hand. "We're a team." They walked inside together, to their children and their new home and their new beginning. And Ethan thought about how he'd spent 5 years building a billion-dollar company, but the best thing he'd ever built was this, a family made from broken pieces, held together by second chances and consistent showing up and love that had earned rather than demanded. It wasn't the story he'd expected to live. It was infinitely better, and it was just beginning.